So in today's episode, I want this four-wheel drive Vauxhall Nova to drive for the first time. Now, as you can see, we've already fitted the transfer box, as well as this heavily modified 4x4 back axle from a Calibra. But the main problem is, this back diff isn't connected to the front. So in today's video, we need to make the prop shaft work, and we also need to make the rear drive shafts work. As you can see, they're not doing anything. Right, let's crack on. Now, off camera, I've already made one of these. Ooh. Right, so off camera, I've already made one of these. So this is standard Calibra drive shaft, rear one, quite hard to get hold of now. What I've done is I've chopped it in the middle and I've shortened it. In today's episode, one of the things we're going to do is going to show you guys how I did this. So it's going to be a bit like Blue Peter. Here's one I prepared earlier. Let's show you how I did it. Right, so we're going to fit this to start off with, and then we'll do the other side. So I quickly fit the drive shaft. It's really simple. Slides into the diff first, and then bolts up to the hub. So got 6 bolts holding it on, and that's pretty much it. Right, so what I've done, I've cut this muck out the drive shaft. Now, obviously, this is a narrowed back axle. That's why I've had to do it. So the wheels fit under the standard Nova wheel arches, and I haven't had to go wide body. So I've had these sleeves machined, which slide over the top. They're quite a tight fit. They're not perfect, but they're fairly tight. And what I'm going to do is true it up the best I can by eye, give it a couple of tacks. Then I'm going to use a DTI, which is a dial test indicator, to see how true it is. I'll tap it into place if it's not very good. Give it another tack and just keep doing that and get it as straight as possible. Now, diff cover is off because it sounds a little bit rumbly. Now, I'm not sure why that is. I can't see anything wrong with it, obvious anyway. There's no debris inside. So maybe it's just me hearing things, who knows. Maybe when I put oil in, it's going to be okay, but it does sound a bit rumbly. So that is something I'm slightly concerned about, but I do have a spare. Right, let's get back to welding this. So I use a TIG welder to do this, mainly because it does a nice, neat weld. Now, I am no professional with a TIG welder. However, I can stick things together. Please don't judge me. I do my best. Right, so I've tagged it with a TIG welder. And I was going to use a DTI, but this came to me, and I think this is a better idea. So I'm using my transmission stand, and I've just put a little bit of pressure on it. And what I've basically done is made sure it's touching all the way around, because initially it was slightly off. So that's nice and true. I can see it is. So next job is to put some more tacks on it. Just keep checking it and make sure it's true. So once I'm happy it's all running nice and true, I take it off and then weld it up properly in the vise. Now back to the diff. I've since put some oil in it, spun it up, and it sounds absolutely fine. So I think I was just imagining things. So all being well, that's one less thing I need to worry about. There's a completed weld, and it doesn't look too bad. Like I say, I'm no professional. So I've just had a couple of weeks off from filming. I've been on holiday, but we're now back and raring to go on this build. But I have done a few things off camera since you last seen me. So I put this drive shaft in and I've painted it, put the diff cover on, filled the diff with gear oil, and I've done a bolt check on the back end. So this lot is all good to go. So the original prop shaft support brackets are kind of like an S shape for the Calibra Turbo, and as you can imagine, they don't fit the tunnel of this Vauxhall Nova. So I'm going to make some new ones out of this rusty old box section, which may not look very presentable, but when I'm done with it, it's going to look great. So this is 2.5mm wool box section, so fairly thin, and the idea is I'm going to chop down it and make it into a little channel. The channel is going to give it extra strength, and it's going to look better and more professional and stronger than just standard 2.5mm plate. Plus it's kind of going to look more factory, shall we say. So I'm going to cut this down now, and let's see what she looks like. Now, if you've been watching me for a while, you'll know I like making things out of scrap. Stuff like this, a rusty old bit of box section, which was destined for the scrap bin, covered in concrete one end, but I've managed to cut it down and repurpose it and make it into something usable again. It's not cost me anything either, and the finished result's pretty good, if I do say so myself. So what I've done, I've straightened these brackets for the centre bearing. There's 2 centre bearings. I've cut this section to 11 inches. And the plan is, it's basically going to bolt along there, and that's going to hold that bit into place. So that's roughly where they need to be. I am going to elongate the holes to give it a little bit of adjustment anyway. But I'm going to centre them now, drill the holes out. I can bolt that up, and I can bolt this to the floor. So I use a centre punch to mark the centres, then drill it out with a high-speed steel 8mm drill bit, and then I go over that with a die grinder piece in a drill. This is just to elongate the hole. If I'm honest, it didn't go quite to plan, so I finished it with a file, but the end result's pretty good. I bolt it to the prop shaft once I'm happy with the position, and then drill through into the floor and then bolt that down with M8 bolts. Now eventually I will weld the bolts in and make it a captive bolt, so it's a stud stuck out the bottom, but for now this will do. Now this is mounted up properly, I can then decide the length of the prop shaft. I mark it with a Sharpie, and then I clamp on a Jubilee clip and make sure it's nice and square using a ruler. I use the Jubilee clip for a reference point for cutting the prop down. This means I've got a nice straight edge, cut round it with a grinder, and I knock in the insert. Now the insert's an interference fit, so I don't need to worry too much about this being massively out, because it shouldn't be. So what I do is I drill through the prop shaft, which allows me to do a plug weld, and I use a straight edge just to make sure everything is nicely in line. I make this end solid by welding both sides, and then I can start knocking it into the other side. Again, I keep checking it with a straight edge as I do it to make sure everything is through. Now at a good point in the video to say a massive thank you to all the new subscribers. We've just recently hit 5,000 subscribers, which is absolutely amazing, and I'm over the moon with it. Now the car will be in use soon, and you're probably going to see it at Santipod. So if you do see me and the car, please come and say hello, and if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and like the video. Here's the next 5,000 subscribers, and of course my favourite car, this 4-wheel drive Vauxhall Nova. So now the insert's welded in to one side of the prop shaft, it's time to attach the other side. Now this is a very tight interference fit. It's basically a press fit. So it took quite a lot of tapping and knocking to get it in. But I did eventually get there. I then put it back in a vise and used the steel rule to check that it was all straight. It wasn't absolutely perfect to start off with, so I give it a couple of taps with a copper hammer, and then eventually I was happy with it. So then drilled 2 holes opposite sides to each other, plug welded one of them and left the other one open so I could physically attach the prop to the car before I welded it, just to make sure it's as true as I can get it. So I'm sure there's quite a few people saying I've done this wrong, I shouldn't have done it like that. Well, it's only to test the car. I wanted to do it quick. If I feel any vibrations or if I have any concerns, I'll get it remade at a prop shaft specialist once I restore the car. But for now, I'm sure this is going to do. Right, so now the prop shaft's in one piece and tacked together. I need to jack it into the right place using the transmission stand, work out exactly where I want it to go, and I can make this adapter fit. So this is going to be the clamp that holds it to the floor, like I've done at the back. But yeah, we are getting there. So I've never done anything like this before, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. I've never made a prop shaft, but I just assumed, rightly or wrongly, that it'd be best to be as straight as possible. So that's the kind of approach I went. I tried to make it as straight as possible and as direct as possible to the back axle. So hopefully it's going to work well. I can't see why it won't. But if it doesn't, I can always make it again. But I'm fairly confident it's going to be okay. So I repeat the process exactly the same as last time. Bolt the bracket through the floor. And then once I'm happy with the prop, you get a few spins, similar to how I did the drive shaft actually. Once I'm happy it's nice and true, and then fill the other plug weld in, and then I seam weld all the way around the prop shaft once I'm 100% happy that it's okay. Like I said earlier, this probably isn't the correct way of doing things, however, I'm fairly confident it's going to work. Right, so that is the prop shaft all welded. I'm really happy with it, which means I can officially say, for the first time on this channel, I have a 4-wheel drive Vauxhall Nova. Look at that. This makes me beyond happy. You would not believe. Wow. Taken nearly a year, guys, but we got there. Obviously, I don't have a lot of time. I'm a dad, got a full-time job, and I just do this as a hobby. So I am absolutely thrilled with how far we've come in the last year. Yeah, absolutely buzzing. I can't wait to get this on the track. On to the next job now, which is going to be the exhaust. Right, we're so nearly there now, guys. We need to make an exhaust, put some seats in, check some bolts, and it's ready for a test drive. So here's the exhaust. Now, as you can see, it's not a very big exhaust. This is a modified Klebra Turbo downpipe. I thought it was 3-inch. It's not. It's 2 3/4. I bought some 3-inch bends to go on the end of it, and obviously they're the wrong size. So what I've done, that's the original one I bought. Here's the modified one. I basically heated the end up and I've tapered it in slightly using some grips and a hammer. Just bent it all in until it's a nice tight fit. So that's really loose. This is a nice tight fit. just like so, as you can see, and that end is very wobbly, so that can weld straight onto this. And the idea is, because it's only going to Santa Pod and they don't have any noise regulations, it's going to go straight down like that. This is going to run down the side of the transfer box and literally point to the floor. So I don't need to be making any kind of complicated exhaust because I'm going to be changing the turbo on this anyway. So this is pretty much going to be redundant when I do that. So for now, this is going to be perfect. It's going to be very loud. It's going to sound awesome. As this is only going to be a temporary exhaust, I'm probably going to only use it for a day. I don't go to town on it. So I literally bolt it up and just tack on this 45-degree elbow. Now this is only there to direct the flames onto the floor rather than onto the fuel lines. So it's serving a purpose, but it isn't there for anything else. Then I go in my scrap bin, find a bit of offcut of stainless and just weld on a little bracket to the transfer box just to hold it in place. And that is the exhaust all done. Now it's not going to offer any silencing, but it is going to sound epic. Right, so now the exhaust's done, all we've got to do is put the driver's seat in and then we can see if it drives, which hopefully it will do. However, we're going to get a little bit of bonus content. Now I wasn't going to do this on camera, but I figured it was kind of interesting. So, previous episode I mentioned the handbrake cables were too long. So what I've done, I just chopped about a foot out of one of them. That's the original Nova joiner, which connects the handbrake lever to the Nova cables. I welded an M10 nut on that, as you can see here. Yeah, this is going to go onto here and run in the standard position of a Nova. Then I can connect the shortened Calibra cables to this, hopefully, all being well. Now it should be an M8 threaded bar what goes into the Calibra cables. I didn't have any M8, so I've just used M10 and drilled the hole out a little bit more. It's not a problem. If anything, it's going to be a bit stronger. Right, let's put this on and see how it works. What I've done now is I've put the inner cable back in. I've shortened it by the same amount, and then I've used the battery terminal and crimped it on to the end of it to act as a stop, basically, because I had to cut the original piece off. And that seems to work really well. So I'm just going to do the other side on camera to show you. So this is the same hydraulic crimper I used to shorten the gear cables. It's actually come in really handy for this project, so I would recommend getting one of these, although they are a little bit expensive. Great for stuff like this though. There we go. Same just a case of putting the cables into place and sliding it over the new M10 threaded bar, and I put a couple of nuts on to lock it off. So I've just made this little cable mount off camera. Now I've done it really quickly, but basically I've used a little bit of tube, put a slot in it so the cables can go through. This is going to hold the outer cables in place. It should work a treat. Now it's very over engineered, as you can see. It's made out of like a 3 or 4 mil thick box section, but it's what I had laying around, so it's going to do the job nicely. I just need to weld it to the rear cross member now. That's another job ticked off the list. And there we go, that's all welded on. Now I do need to cut this down still, but I just want to make sure it's working before I do that. But yeah, pretty chuffed for that. So standard Nova connector, nut welded on the end, double nutted with M10 threaded bar going straight through the middle onto shortened Calibra turbo gear cables and a custom little mount bracket here. Should work, nice. So they go into the back of the disc, as you can see there, across there, over the axle, and exactly the same on the other side. And after a year of hard work, all that's left to do now is bolt the driver's seat in, and then I can drive it for the first time. And like all good projects, well, not everything goes quite as smoothly as you wanted it to. So I had visions of elegantly driving this out the garage, talking to the camera, but unfortunately that didn't go to plan. Never mind, it did move a couple of foot before it cut out. I'll just push it instead. Right, so that didn't go to plan. I've just run out of petrol, but it did just drive for the first time by itself. So I am absolutely buzzing. It's a very good place to end the video. The next episode, we will be racing this car at Santa Pod Raceway. So if you've enjoyed the project so far, please don't forget to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment below and stay tuned for more. Next time you see this, she's going to be drag racing. See you later. Bye bye.